There's a very special variation of the ah sound, as in the word cat, and it actually makes the sound a lot easier to make. In fact, this is the ah sound that Americans will use more often than not, unless we're clearly enunciating. Let's talk a bit about what I call the lazy ah. Hi, I'm Josh, your American English guide, and this is English Hacks Pronunciation, where I help you to sound more like a native if you want, and to understand real American speech better. So you already know about the sound ah, and you also know that it's probably a very difficult sound for you if it doesn't already exist in your language. But things can be a little easier. So what do I mean when I say the lazy ah? Well, fully enunciated, this sound is ah, ah, which is pretty open. And on the vowel chart, we know we have e, ah, so it's below e. But what happens if I go up to e, but instead of saying I try to say ah, 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 ah. You notice my mouth doesn't even open all that much. Ah, 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 ah. Now, how is this possible? It's because there's actually a different shape, different tension in the tongue between and ah. And fully enunciated, of course, we're going to tend to open our mouth more because ah and ah are very open sounds. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to open very, very wide unless you're enunciating, right? We don't usually take the time to actually open all the way up unless we emphasize or exaggerate that sound. So how does this work? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but it might take some practice. Of course, first you want to be able to hear the difference between and ah, the normal fully pronounced ah, which you can do by using the minimal pair practice between and ah. And then you might want to help train your ears a bit for the difference between and this lazy ah, which you can do using the fast version of the minimal pairs between and ah, because I naturally use the lazy ah in that lesson. So definitely build up your ears first. That's always the first step. Once you can hear the difference, then you can start gauging or trying to notice if you're making the sound properly. So when you're trying to make the sound yourself, we're going to take a special step here. We know the schwa is in the middle, okay? And you should feel this almost like there's a ball here. This isn't about the schwa. I have lessons about the schwa you can go watch. But if we go from that schwa, which is sort of a neutral center of gravity in the mouth for American English, if we just we keep it pretty flat, just a little bit of tension, and we shift the tension in our tongue forward, you're going to get that third vowel sound. Now to do ah normally, you're going to go from and really slide it, open and down. Ah. Now there's a little bit going on with the back of the tongue and the middle of the tongue even. There's a bit of what's called raising, and this isn't completely necessary for the sound, but it is a very common thing in American English that we do, whether it's the normal ah or the lazy ah. So that can help you get that deeper sound. Instead of just focusing here, try to make sure the back of your tongue is actually a little higher. Ah. Don't block it off like ah. It's not a back sound, it's still a front sound, but you can get this up a bit. Ah. And again, you're trying to push forward, just like with you're trying to sort of shift the tension forward from here to here, but you're going to open a bit more, and more importantly, you're going to have a different shape, slightly different shape. But I'm going to give you an easy trick here. If you go to the third vowel sound, open your mouth a little more. Again, this is for the full which we're then going to use to shift into that lazy You open your mouth a little bit more. So, Okay, still keep it here, but as you open the middle of your tongue, I can't do this with my hand, the middle of your tongue, instead of being flat, the front part is going to stay here, but you're going to get this sort of little shape here. Okay, and there's little subtle or very small things with the tension of your tongue here and there, or sideways or top to bottom, that can make you not quite get the sound, and so you have to play with this a little bit. Now, to do the lazy you're going to keep that basic shape, except you're not going to open your mouth as much. So you're going to say from the height of and all I'm doing there is, instead of putting the pressure just here and keeping everything flat, I'm still having the tension, the pressure here, feel that it's here on my tongue, but I'm just letting this sort of push down a bit while keeping everything else the same. That creates a little curve, and then you feel the pressure here, the tension. That's all it is. It's a little tiny shift in the tension of the tongue on the front. So let's look at some examples here. But before we do that, one quick note. Sometimes the lazy will sound slightly different depending on the sounds around it. And this is actually generally true for all sounds, especially vowel sounds, because whatever sound you're coming from or going to, your tongue will have to move in a slightly different way to get in or out of that particular sound. And it can cause a little bit of a change or a distortion, but the basic sound is always going to be pretty much the same. If you have really good ears and you're listening and you're like, this sounds a little different, it's probably just because of the sounds around it, and you don't have to really worry too much about that. For the examples, what I'm going to do is, just like we found from to 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 the lazy I'm going to do that. Okay, not all of these are going to be words, but this way you can build it up and really practice getting into that lazy So I'm going to say an example word like the word at, but I'm going to start here. We're going to do et, at. Okay, just like that. So we'll go through all 4 of those steps for each example word here. Ready? Et, at, cut, ket, cat, and, and, hund, hend, hand, mun, men, man, kun, ken, can, lust, lest, last, pust, pest, past, usk, esk, ask, musk, mesk, mask, luff, lef, laugh, cruft, creft, craft, hove, hev, have. Does this make the sound any easier for you? Let me know. Also, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching another English Hacks lesson, and I'll see you guys in the next one.